y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. We're really excited to be here today with Alli Schaper, who is the co-founder and CEO of Multiverse. And I'm going to butcher the explanation of what Multiverse is. So I'm going to hand it over to Alli to just explain first and foremost what Multiverse is, because it's an amazing store.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to chat with you both. So the easiest way to describe what the multiverse is, and actually before even describing what it is, I'm kind of going to explain what the mission behind it is a little bit. Mushrooms are having this moment right now in the Western world, which is awesome. And what's so fascinating about that in and of itself is that they've been around for thousands and thousands of years, but it's like our Western world is really waking up to their potential, which is amazing. And, because of that, we're seeing this explosion of products and industries even, formulating around the fungi kingdom as a whole. And the Multiverse's first venture, even though, our mission behind what we're doing is much larger than just CPG products, is to curate the best stuff that has mushrooms in it for consumers to buy. And so, we think of ourselves like a curated Amazon for mushrooms or a Thrive Market for mushrooms. So you can go online to yourmultiverse.com and shop the best supplements, superfoods, snacks, all that have functional mushrooms as a primary or secondary ingredient in them. And we're also launching our own product line as well.
Oh, yay. That is super exciting. Like, I don't know. So full disclosure, we actually tried to do this interview like months before, and, it was totally the universe, but like technical difficulties abound. And so now we're sitting here having this conversation with Alli. And I don't think you mentioned the products that you guys are going to launch before. So I'm so happy that, again, this is all divine. Like, I feel like this is the perfect timing to talk. Tell us a little bit about how you even got here. Like what spurred you on, or what inspired you to even get involved or create Multiverse?
Yeah, so it's kind of from two different angles. And actually a lot of my passion for everything that we're doing comes from both the functional mushroom side of things and the psychedelic mushroom side of things as well. And just to snowball on top of, what I was saying a little bit earlier, is just that mushrooms are changing every single industry. Like if you look at, everything from obviously supplements and beverages, which is kind of the category we're tackling right now with the Multiverse, but companies are raising hundreds of millions of dollars for mycelium based leather. And
I have my eyes on the Adidas, yes, I'm
oh my
so
God, I
obsessed
stopped
with that.
And I immediately was like, Ellen's going to buy that.
Totally. I'm like first in line. I keep on checking to see when they're going to launch. But go on, sorry.
Crazy. And that's what's so fascinating is a lot of people, mushrooms are so misunderstood. And once you really start to explore what's happening in the mushroom space, it's fascinating. And so kind of what happened to me and why I landed here is I started to explore what was happening in the mushroom space, and I decided to drop everything else and dedicate my life to it because it was so overwhelmingly fascinating. And, Ellen led us through this really beautiful meditation 5 minutes ago before we started recording on the podcast. So you guys didn't get to hear it. I wish we recorded it because it was beautiful. But she incorporated how the Mycellium network, I'm totally derailing from the question here, but I'm just going to
go for it.
She really just spoke about so beautifully how the Mycellium network operates underground and how it connects all living things on Earth, and, and incorporated that into the meditation, which was really beautiful. But what's so fascinating about that is the Mycellium network does connect all living things on Earth, and mycelium are being used now to create alternatives to packaging. Certain types of mushrooms can eat toxins out of the air. I mentioned the leathers that are being created and the packaging and the clothing that's being created with mushrooms. And obviously psilocybin, which is a psychoactive part of magic mushrooms, are changing the face of mental health. So my journey with this started kind of twofold. I had a previous company, which was called Ziggy. Easiest way to think about it is like a Birchbox for wellness type of business model. So I worked with hundreds of CPG brands to make these awesome wellness packages. Functional mushrooms kind of came into my world because of starting that company. And I started using them religiously every day. And they had a major impact on my gut health, my overall vitality. I didn't drink caffeine at the time, and mushrooms were a huge energy source for me. And they really just became a ritual. And I started consuming them every day and noticed the effects. It was very noticeable, what they were doing to my body. At the same time, this was probably like 4 or 5 years ago, when people like Michael Pollan and Tim Ferriss really started talking about and funding the psychedelic space, I really started to pay attention. And so I started to just avidly study that space and everything that was going on in it. And it was because, these leaders that I had followed in completely different industries, like, Michael Pollan for food and Tim Ferriss for life hacks and biohacking and like business advice, started talking about psychedelics. And that's what really got me onto it, because, I'm from Missouri and I was raised under the DARE program, just say no to drugs. Yeah, you too. Great.
I totally remember that.
It's such a wrong narrative. And I really started to change my own mind after reading books like Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind, and kind of just went down this journey. And after seeing everything that's happening in both psychedelic medicine and having personally experienced all of the beautiful benefits of functional mushrooms, coupled with the fact that they're changing all of these different industries, I really, part of our tagline and part of what we talk about all day, every day at the Multiverse is that we really believe mushrooms can change the world. And they've proven that they can. And if done correctly, they really can. And so how we actually, got here is I partnered with this amazing guy. His name's Brian. We had 3 co-founders of the Multiverse, and Brian is a seasoned entrepreneur. He's already built and sold a few businesses. And I met him at a wellness retreat a few years ago in New York City. I read his book. There's no better way to get to know someone than reading a book about their life, and really, seeing how he responded to all types of situations, both from business to personal to conflict. And I was like, I want to start a business with this person. And so we partnered up to start the Multiverse and started creating it, started collecting brands. And that was, I guess during COVID last year. And then we also partnered with a third co-founder, and all 3 together started the Multiverse, and we are creating a product line as well underneath of that. So that's kind of how it all unfolded.
Okay, let's take a half beat step back and just explain what functional fungi are, because I think everything you said, Sam and I have been on this journey too, and like going through adaptogenic mushrooms and mushroom supplements. I think I take lion's mane every single day right now, just for mental clarity and stuff. And Sam turned me on to like reishi, and it's just, this whole world is bonkers. And then not to even mention the psychedelic space too. Like both of us are such huge advocates. And I know for a fact that in my future, I will be guiding psilocybin journeys once it probably becomes legalized or decriminalized. And so that's definitely for sure in the future. And I really want to start growing and all this stuff. So yeah, let's explain and sort of almost unpack like what functional fungi actually is, so that everybody kind of understands what that, I think most people know now, but I'd love to hear kind of like from your perspective.
Yeah. And actually, you'd be surprised. One of the most common questions we get from people that are shopping on the Multiverse is, will these get me high? It's fascinating, because while obviously, there's been this massive shroom boom that people are calling it, most people actually have a very low understanding and limited understanding of the fungi kingdom and how it's kind of separated, what's psychoactive, what's not, what's the difference between mycelium and fruiting body. And so the easiest way to explain functional mushrooms, because there's around 2,000-ish species of like edible medicinal mushrooms. Around like 13 to 15 of those, you mentioned lion's mane, cordyceps, turkey tail, reishi, chaga. Those are kind of like the main buzzy mushrooms you hear about right now. Those are like the main functional mushrooms. And what that means is, beyond just nutritional benefits, they have been found to support your overall health in like one way or another, whether that's, lowering stress, supporting your immune system, sharpening, you mentioned lion's mane, for brain health, sharpening cognitive function, overall energy, overall vitality, gut health. They're an incredible source of fiber. So the list goes on, but each of these mushrooms individually, of the main functional ones, like lion's mane, chaga, turkey tail, reishi, has kind of a specific benefit. And while, together they're amazing for your overall health, each one, chaga for your immune system, reishi is adaptogenic. So it's great for, relaxation. I take reishi every night before I go to bed. So there's a way to kind of incorporate these into your routine based on what you need. And, part of what is so cool about mushrooms is whatever you're going through, there's a mushroom for that. And there's really like an unlimited way that you can incorporate them and what they can be used for. The last thing I'll say is, they're loaded with polyphenols, polysaccharides, beta glucans, like all of these antioxidant properties, and, all of them in isolation and in compound, like can support your immune system in a ton of different ways.
Yeah. And I was going to ask you too, because I think like, a lot of times people always think that the only way to take a mushroom is to take the fruit or to take it in like a powder form. But there's so many ways that people are incorporating these into their diets now, right? Like all these products that you guys sell are obviously edible, but like if you're someone who doesn't like the taste of mushrooms, that doesn't mean that this is not an avenue for you necessarily, correct?
100%. That's such a great point. That's actually why we're launching our own product line, because, the kind of narrative that I feel like is missing in this space is that we believe that humans were designed to eat mushrooms. And, there is so much crazy historical evidence showing that humans were eating mushrooms all through evolution. And like today, there's a lot of people that walk around in America that don't consume any sort of mushroom, whether that be culinary mushrooms, even just shiitake mushrooms, or, button mushrooms from the grocery store. And we think that's a major oversight. We think that, humans should be consuming mushrooms. They have so many benefits. But the kicker is, like, some people think they taste gross, regardless of whether they're psychedelic or not. Some people have an aversion just because they think mushrooms taste gross. And a lot of the products out there, while the space is definitely getting better and there's so much innovation, I think there's such a need to make this stuff attractive and, craveable to consumers. So we're targeting that with our product line that we're launching, which is called SuperMush. But there's a million different ways you can get them into your diet, whether that's like sneaking them into snacks. There's mushroom-based jerkies now that are launching, or even just other snack products, granolas that are including mushrooms in them. There's tinctures, there's supplements, there's powders. And, all these companies have done a really awesome job, extracting the mushrooms, making, a giant bowl of mushrooms that you'd normally have to eat condensed into, a little tincture dropper, which is awesome.
You mentioned the word, and we've been talking a little bit about like adaptogenic mushrooms. Like you were saying that reishi is an adaptogenic mushroom. Can you break that down for us as well? Because I feel like I've read this definition of it a long time ago, but I still don't fully understand exactly. Like there's functional mushrooms, but then adaptogenic is basically one type of functional mushroom. Is that correct?
Yeah, like the cliff notes, the space is so vast. And actually, one of my good friends, who is the national educator for a brand called Four Sigmatic, she's writing a book all about adaptogens. So it requires a book to fully, know everything. And even that is 10,000 foot view in a lot of ways, because there's so much to know about this space. And a lot of my knowledge actually has come from her. She's wonderful. Easiest way to explain adaptogens is not all mushrooms are adaptogens and not all adaptogens are mushrooms. But when I think adaptogens, I think homeostasis. So there are some functional mushrooms that function like adaptogens. And what that means is it responds to wherever your body is at. So reishi, if you're, have a bunch of energy and you kind of feel, stressed out, it'll bring you back down to like a homeostasis level. And then the other side of that, if you are, low energy, it'll bring you up. So that's how adaptogens function. And some mushrooms do have adaptogenic properties, which is really cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
I sort of think
Thank
of
you.
reishi as like the ashwagandha equivalent of mushrooms.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, a lot of, one of the products we just onboarded to the multiverse, this really amazing, beautifully branded tea brand called Steep and Mellow. They have ashwagandha and reishi. So you're seeing a lot of products combine those, which is really awesome. And also,
Brilliant.
customers, and as a consumer of a wellness products, when you see ashwagandha, you kind of think relaxation and chill. And so companies are now adding reishi to that. And then now people are starting to associate reishi with that, which is great. So these companies are really trying to educate based on what other complementary superfoods they're including in their products too.
Okay, I have one more like totally random question that has been lingering
Okay.
since the first time we tried to record this interview because we had just gotten started and I was like, I have so many questions. um, okay, so when Ellen and I very first started our healing journeys, like one of the first books that I read was Eat Dirt, and I'm like totally spacing on the author's name right
Dr.
now.
Axe.
Thank you, Dr. Josh Axe. And he has this whole chapter in that book about like functional mushrooms and adaptogenic mushrooms. And
Yeah.
so I started taking these supplements that he made that have like 7 of the functional mushrooms blended together in them. But I'm realizing now as you're talking about like, oh, there's a way to incorporate these based on the benefits you want to get. So if you take like a blended supplement, you're not really maximizing the benefits of all of those mushrooms, right? But you're
No,
still gonna,
actually. Oh, sorry.
oh,
Go ahead.
no, like take it from here, girl.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So you can take them, you can take chaga by itself, or you can take it in a 10 mushroom blend. And a lot of what I do is take mushrooms in blends. So it's not like, to maximize the benefit of lion's mane, you need to take lion's mane in isolation at all. Both are popular ways to consume them, but you might, for each body is different. So for your body, you may find through experimenting that like the blends work best for you, or that your body really responds super well to a blend of cordyceps and lion's mane, or lion's mane and reishi before bed to like enhance your sleep. So not at all are the blends not maximizing the products. And actually a lot of the best products that we have are a blend of the best mushrooms.
Okay, that makes me feel much better because I was like, wow, I wonder if I wasn't like getting what I thought I was getting out of them. But actually, in hindsight, when I think about the experience of having taken them, like when I had sort of stopped taking them, like it was like night and day the difference between like the health issues that I was experiencing beforehand and after. But I don't think I fully appreciated what they were doing for me when I took them. So it's like it's only now that I'm looking back and I'm like, whoa, I got to start taking those again.
Yeah. And they compound in your system over time. And I think that's also something that's misunderstood about mushrooms, because it's completely, you kind of reversing the narrative that we've been like told through Western medicine, which is you take a pill and then you're fixed. You take an Advil and your pain goes away. And what's so beautiful about mushrooms, not only is it, incredible for like short-term solutions to like, I want to sleep better for sure, but they compound in your system over time. And so, I think about it like compounding interest, and really like the more you take them, the more you invest in your wellness, like the less you will end up in the future paying for your illness. And people do start to realize that once you stop taking them, you'll realize like these have been compounding in my system. A lot of people that take functional mushrooms routinely, don't really get sick that often, which is great. You have to be careful like what you can say. FDA claims, which is also one of the limitations of the industry, which I have a lot of thoughts on, because there are a lot of studies out there that have proven really, really insane results with functional mushrooms, yet we're so limited on what we can say as a brand. And even when I'm talking to other brands, where I'm hearing these stories where the founder of a brand, the reason why they started the company is, I had X problem and I solved it through functional mushrooms. They can't even share that story really. Or, you can't make claims on these bottles, which is pretty insane. Yet, if you look at some of the pharmaceuticals that are prescribed on, in the Western world and through a lot of our, through the big healthcare companies, the claims that they're making are pretty ridiculous. So it's just a little bit of an imbalanced system, which hopefully will be, changing.
I'm so glad that you brought this. I mean, I can like soapbox about this forever, but I feel like the idea of mushrooms being preventative, like, and this whole, I mean, I just now recently signed up for TIA. I don't know if you heard about TIA, but it's like a new healthcare, for women offering that just landed in Silver Lake, but I think it started in Brooklyn originally. But the whole, I mean, it's like women exams and mental health and all that kind of stuff. The whole concept is around preventative health so that you're not stuck on pharmaceuticals for the rest of your life to like deal with some, words are escaping me right now, but
yeah, the
autoimmune. Yeah.
Autoimmune, yeah. I mean, the preventative aspect of why we should be incorporating, any sort of health product into our life is huge. And even though we're not talking about psychedelics, I think that this is an important point to make here, because one of the most profound things that really, really, really fascinated me with the space is, all of our healthcare system is designed to treat symptoms. Mm-hmm. And this unfortunate failure to identify root causes of disease, it keeps patients in the system. Yeah. And when I started reading about psilocybin specifically and other psychedelics, but there is so much crazy data showing that clinical trials with psilocybin with a single dose can have this remarkable lasting positive change. And maybe a few series of sessions, like from the single session, they can deliver cures to a lot of illnesses that people have been taking medication for decades of their life. Mm-hmm. So that's not great for, big pharma.
Exactly.
But it's really helping people. And I think that if you look at what's happened, a lot of my passion for this space, I worked in the healthcare system for a little bit before I started my first company, and my job for 12 months was to analyze the American healthcare system, identify all the profit pools, like really look at the drugs that people were being prescribed. And there's such a correlation between the profit margins and the drugs that are prescribed. So the reason why certain doctors prescribe certain drugs, and again, there are some gems in the healthcare system of amazing doctors and amazing humans. Like that's a huge caveat, but my experience interacting with it as a patient was not great. And I was constantly prescribed prescriptions for things that I didn't need. And there's this really crazy statistic, which is a little bit skewed because of the average is high. But in 2018, Americans filed around 6 billion prescriptions, a little bit lower than that. And that comes out to like almost 18 prescriptions per person.
Holy shit.
Obviously majorly skewed, for people that are on 40 for a really chronic, crazy illness.
Sure.
Versus people that are only on a few, but still that's like an alarming amount of everything from antidepressants to, anti-anxiety medications. And just, the last note I'll make on the psilocybin piece, because I totally derailed us from functional mushrooms, is, Johns Hopkins just released this amazing study a few months ago showing that psilocybin has been found to be 4 times more effective than traditional SSRIs at curing depression. And so you're having these studies consistently come out. And it's, psilocybin has made a huge impact in my personal life. It's made a huge impact in my family's life and a lot of people around me. So just seeing that and seeing, the remarkable positive change in my mom, who would never have tried mushrooms, a few years ago, but because now of like learning and seeing all these studies and this research, the space has become so legitimized and people really are changing their minds, which is cool.
Is your mom microdosing?
She wants to start. I love microdosing. I'm a fan of it, and there's a lot of really awesome studies showing what microdosing can do for you. My mom is really fascinating. I actually just talked about her on another podcast. She's getting a lot of airtime. My mom's fascinating, and she's a really great example of someone who it was not easy originally to change her mind about this space. You know, she was from the mindset of weed is the devil, right? And she has not had a good experience with cannabis when she was younger, and so kind of looped drugs into this one category. But as I started learning, I started sharing all this with her. So she read, you know, Michael Pollan's How to Change Your Mind with me, and watching her perspective change because of education, which is why education is the key to all of this, right? How to rebrand mushrooms and psychedelics and even functional mushrooms. The key is education. And so we went through this whole process. You know, she watched Fantastic Fungi with me, which is an incredible documentary.
Oh my God, I love that movie.
Yeah.
So good.
The best movie. And that's, you know, we can chat about that in a second because it's incredible and deserves, we talk about it a lot. And, you know, she really, really shifted her perspective after going through this process, and then had, you know, a life-changing experience with psilocybin. And I've seen the lasting change in her, and she constantly references it almost every time we talk on the phone.
Wait,
you know,
so how did she, what was like the setting for her to do this? Because my mom is like, she is straddling the line right now. And I'm like, part of me really wants to like encourage her to explore this space. But that, like your mom, she's had terrible experiences with weed, still doesn't like anything that like kind of makes her feel out of control. And so I'm like, I don't know, like maybe a baby dose.
Yeah. I mean, so she did it at home, and she lives in Georgia in the middle of nowhere. And I, you know, it was a very controlled, like safe setting. Also, I would definitely recommend that people find a licensed therapist and guide. And there's so many great resources now that are emerging to help you do so safely. There's, you know, you have to be careful because there is a lot of pseudo shamanism out there, and double blind. If you're familiar with double blind,
yeah,
they
we
have
love double
great
blind
resources and really, really awesome educational resources for you to vet your guides and make sure you're finding the right people. But yeah, I think that definitely you should do it in, you know, make sure you have the integration, make sure you have, you know, you can bootstrap your own ceremonies and stuff like that. But I think for someone that's, you know, experiencing it for the first time and is nervous, having that safety in that container is really important.
Was your mom alone?
No, she was with people.
Oh, okay.
Good.
Yeah,
Okay.
good. Okay, I was like, wow, she was so brave if she was alone. Even I wouldn't do that.
That's incredible. I know, it's like something that like Alzheimer's, you know, I'm now a big firm believer in epigenetics, but like Alzheimer's does run in my family, and my grandmother passed away from Alzheimer's. And there's, you know, I always fear that it's kind of coming on in my mom. And I'm like watching all the psilocybin studies as it pertains to Alzheimer's, just to see if there's going to be some sort of correlation or solution that psilocybin can offer. So I've been like we both have microdosed, and so I've been kind of like wanting to introduce microdosing to my mom as well. I've been giving her lion's mane specifically because I know
I read that if you mix the microdoses with the lion's mane, it's really good for your like memory and your
for real
brain function.
I can imagine. Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's so exciting to see what's coming through. You know, there's just like, I feel like every day there's like a new study that's like kind of proving that, you know, like I just posted about MDMA the other day, which is not mushrooms, but, you know, like just psychedelics as a whole is just really, really exciting. It's just like the sky's the limit, I feel like right now.
It really is. And I think it's moving a lot quicker than most people think. And what's so cool, just to bring it back to functional mushrooms, is like these spaces rise in parallel. So as more interest goes towards functional mushrooms, then, you know, more interest obviously will go towards psychedelics, and vice versa. And, you know, kind of the role of the multiverse and what we're interested in is how can we educate people on functional mushrooms and really, you know, make mushrooms. Our mission is to make mushrooms sexy. Like that is the goal. It's like, how can we make functional mushrooms that are not typically sexy? If you look at, you know, before a few years ago, the branding of these products are not approachable for someone who is a millennial or in Gen Z. And so we want to really rebrand mushroom, make them sexy and accessible and cool through the multiverse and through our own product line, and serve as an ally to all of these amazing psychedelic life sciences companies that are doing all of this amazing work. And eventually we will also be playing in the psychedelic space as well. But our goal is, really, really like help people get their toe in the water with approaching mushrooms, the fungi kingdom as a whole with functional. And we'll be educating and doing a lot of community-based stuff around psychedelics in the meantime until it is legal, which it will be eventually. And yeah, we're just kind of following that progression.
Tell us a little bit about your product line.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
So we're really excited about it. It's launching in about 2 months. It's called SuperMush. And the whole idea behind SuperMush was we wanted to create something that was the opposite of millennial sleek style branding. We wanted something that had, inspiration from the psychedelic era. Obviously it's functional products. They're not psychedelic. But we wanted SuperMush to really reference the culture and the music and the vibe of the 60s and 70s. So much of my favorite stuff and branding and music comes from that era. And I think there's such a magic in that era. If you look at psychedelics were huge in that era. And a lot of I think a lot of that was lost when the whole space got shut down. And, we had the war on drugs that put this whole space underground for, 40 to 50 years. It's having this resurgence. So we wanted to reference that and really bring that inspiration into the brand. And so you'll see that reflected in our packaging and branding and copy. We want to reference a lot of the lyrics and song titles, in an appropriate, not copyright way, for a lot of the iconic bands and music of that era as well. So the product we're creating is we're still keeping it kind of on the down low until we launch it, but it's going to be in the form of basically you kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you're talking about most people don't want to consume mushrooms. They taste kind of gross. We wanted something that tastes incredible. It's easy to take. And yeah, we're really excited about it. And we'll have a ton more products that launch after that as well.
Oh man, that's I can't wait.
You know what? It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever tried, I'm sure you have, tried Mood Belly.
Yeah.
They have the chocolate mushroom blend.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. That was like my evening's like treat every night for so long. It was so good. And I was like so happy that it had so many healing benefits in it because I was like, I don't have to feel guilty about drinking this glass of hot chocolate.
It's also something that I feel like I have, I forget the brand, but I have like a package of like the blended like 5 different mushrooms in powder form. And I literally just put them in my pancakes as I'm, making my pancakes, or you could put in your smoothie. I mean, it's like so versatile and, you can kind of like hide it in a sense, like in your foods and not have to like worry about tasting anything earthy or slimy if that's the consistency that you're like not vibing with. So yeah, I can't wait to see what comes through. And the word gummy kind of came through my mind. Yeah, I'm excited.
So actually, this brings up another question I do have though, like because it's like we're even just in this really quick conversation mentioning so many different products that we have just sort of like tried here and there along the way. How do you guys really determine, like, what's the litmus test for how you determine like which products you sell and like what the quality is?
It's such a great question. And actually probably should have led with that because that's a large part of the reason why we created this. And if you look at what happened, to answer your question, I feel like the easiest way to reference this is what happened with CBD was pretty unfortunate in a lot of ways because you had, this massive trend and hundreds of companies, if not thousands, getting into this industry. And there were some really high quality companies that were in there, but around 90%, depending on who you chat with, I have a few friends that are incredible CBD company founders, and they make really awesome, effective, high quality products. But depending on who you chat with, around 90% of the CBD brands out there are kind of bullshit. And that's because people weren't using the right part of the plant. They weren't using the right amount. They weren't sourcing the ingredients in the correct way. The list goes on and on. And mushrooms has so much comparison to CBD, and psilocybin has so much comparison to cannabis. And we're kind of starting to see that happen in this industry as well, where companies are saying mushrooms are a trend and they're taking the wrong part of the mushroom because it's cheaper, or they're using a really small amount of the mushroom, throwing into their product and putting a massive branded this is a mushroom product on the front of their label, and you have a really, really confused consumer or someone who's just kind of naive to understanding what to look for in their products, and they would have no idea how to vet accordingly. So our goal with the multiverse is, how can we do that work for you and also educate people so they know what to look for in their products? And the hopes of all of that is to do better by the mushroom space than we saw happen with CBD. And we really think that it's so important to have someone like a multiverse curated standards out there to help educate people and to help them make sure that they're consuming the right products. Because there's nothing worse than taking something every day thinking it's doing, incredible things for your health, where it's not an effective product. So what we look for, and we have this whole list of standards on our website. You can find them at yourmultiverse.com. This whole list of Fung Yes and Fung No standards that we're continuing to evolve and iterate based on new research and science and everything that comes out. We really think that's important as well, to make sure we're evolving with the industry. But what we know to be true right now is that we only work with companies that are using the fruiting body of the mushroom in dietary supplements. Totally different story. And I guess just to elaborate on that a little bit more for people that don't understand the difference between fruiting body and mycelium, is that the mycelium network, which we kind of danced around and mentioned a little bit earlier, is the root structure that goes underneath of the ground that connects all living things on earth. But the fruiting body of the mushroom, which is what most people think of when they'll see something popping up out of like a grassy field, that's the fruiting body. And that's the more typical what people think of when they think of a mushroom. And there are some companies that are using the fruiting body in their supplements, which pretty much all research out there is pointing to is way more effective. And again, we're leaning on experts in the field to give us this information, but there are some companies that are using the mycelium. It's much cheaper. They're not correctly removing it from the surface on which it's grown, and they're putting it into their mushroom products. So essentially you're getting kind of a lot of filler. I
didn't even know that was possible.
Yeah.
That's like so disappointing to find out.
Yeah, it is. But then, what's interesting, and I do have to share this part as well, is I believe in sharing both sides of the story, but this is a huge debate in the, the mushroom community between fruiting body and mycelium. There are a lot of people that believe that mycelium is actually more effective. And not a lot, I would say, predominantly fruiting body people, but there are people that think if you remove the mycelium correctly and you put it in your product in the correct way, then it actually can have beneficial health benefits as well, which, again, all that being said, we've decided as of right now, we're just working with companies that are using the fruiting body because of the research that we've seen. However, using the mycelium for like meat alternatives and like texture and packaging and leathers, that's incredible. And so we're really supportive of like all of those companies doing that. But for dietary supplements, if you were to compare a fruiting body tincture to a mycelium tincture, most of the research that we have seen has shown that fruiting body is superior. So that's one of the main criteria. Also, we have like a minimum that we look for. And this is a little bit of a range depending on what the use of the product is. If it's, a snack brand that has granola in it and they just want to add, some chaga fruiting body extract into the granola, and the primary purpose of that is not to be a dietary supplement, the minimum amount that you'll have to put in will be a little bit lower of milligrams. But we look for around like 400 to 500 milligrams of mushrooms in a serving, or of total functionals in that product. So those are kind of like the two main things for mushroom wise. And then we have obviously like the general wellness standards of like no artificial sweeteners, no fillers, no preservatives, no hydrogenated oils, and all of those things.
So is it fair to say that the products that you guys carry probably have a higher potency than most other products you would find just like, let's say, on Amazon?
It's a range. Definitely there are in some of the brands you'll find on Amazon or even in the grocery store. It's crazy. Like they'll put, 30 to 40 milligrams of reishi fruiting body extract into a product reishi mycelium biomass product into their, whatever the brand is. and label it a mushroom product, which would be completely ineffective. It's like putting a single kernel of salt on your food and saying it's salted. But
Wow.
overall, most of the products on our marketplace, what I would say would have a higher potency, but it's a range. It's anywhere from, 200 milligrams to 3,000.
Can you give us the language that, like, you just said something just now that now I want to look on every single mushroom supplement bottle that I have to like see what the hell is, because clearly my education is only like so much. But when you're looking for a mushroom product, what are the words to look out for that you should stay away from?
That's okay. So it's a great question. And the main things, if you're looking for, you would love to see on a product, fruiting body extracts or made from the fruiting body. That's great. You would also not want to see made exclusively from mycelial biomass. Any word with kind of mycelium in there, there's a lot of kind of hidden ways in which they word it. But the best companies in this space will say made from fruiting body extracts because they know how important that is.
Okay. That's really helpful.
Those are the main things. And those are kind of, they're worded in different ways based on like what the nutritional label looks like. But if you can just vet products through those two different lenses, it'll be pretty clear.
Wow. Okay. For somebody who is like, I mean, Sam and I feel like we've been in this space a little bit, but we're clearly not experts in it. But for somebody who's just sort of hearing about mushrooms and they haven't necessarily taken any supplements before or like dove into adaptogenic herbs or mushrooms or anything like that, like what would you recommend them kind of start with? Or how should they begin to decide what products would be good for them or what mushrooms would be good for them?
Yeah, it's a great question as well. And actually what we have on the website is we've broken it down into need and specific things that you're looking to, to either enhance or stuff that, kind of issues that you have. And the 4 categories we have as of right now, we will continue to expand on these are focus, immunity, energy, and chill. And based on whatever you're kind of looking for, you can search by those categories to find, like if you're looking to sleep better, you'll, if you go to the chill section of the website, or even if that's just you're stressed and you want something to help you relax, you'll go and find a lot of those products include reishi, they include lion's mane. So you'll have, and it depends on also like what type of person you are. Like, are you someone who, I don't love tinctures, I love powders. I love making like cocktails for myself and making, mushroom and nut milk infused drinks. So I love powders, but my co-founder loves tinctures. And so kind of depending on like how you like to consume products, look at that as well. But I would say, look based on the category to start, focus, immunity, energy, and chill. And then pick something. I would say a tincture or a powder is like a great starting place, even a capsule, and just start to incorporate them every day. And the important thing is like, you have to be using these every day. Ideally you should be using them every day because they do compound in your system over time. And you'll really start to notice the effects once you build a ritual around them. So I would say also the last thing to note is if you're a new to mushrooms person and you all of a sudden start incorporating 3,000 milligrams of cordyceps, you're going to really feel it. Like these really, you really feel them, which is great, but work your way up, right? So someone who's been taking mushrooms for a few years, they're going to be totally fine with that. But I would say, work your way up, start with, 400 to 500 milligrams a day, and then kind of baby step your way up and take more based on how you're seeing, your body respond, and really just check in with yourself and see how you're feeling.
How would you feel if you went from 0 to 3,000 milligrams of cordyceps?
So, it's funny. And actually, one of the companies that sells on our website called Alpha Dynamics, they just have a 3,000 milligram straight cordyceps powder, which is awesome. And cordyceps is incredible for athletic performance. A lot of athletes are now coming out and starting to talk about their use of cordyceps and other functional mushrooms for energy. But you feel really energized. It's something I recommend everyone experiment with. It's a great alternative to coffee. But it also gives you kind of like that calmer energy rather than feeling jittery. So why a lot of people are using mushrooms to get off of caffeine is because that you have this like calm, energized feeling, which is how we all want to feel. That's what we're going for when we drink coffee, but it's not doing the job.
Mm-hmm. So I think, when we were first talking, I think we were like full in on the pandemic, shut down everything. And one of our questions was just around immunity support, which I think is still very important, especially now as we're seeing like a lot of variants rise up and things like that. But what would you recommend for somebody who is like, just wants to boost their immunity and wants their body to function or to be a little bit more defensive?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that to start, I would start incorporating a chaga based tincture or a capsule that has chaga in it. Plant People, this company, Plant People, has incredible capsules that you can take. A company called Rainbow and a company called Euphoric Earth also sell really beautiful chaga based tinctures on our website. And I would also incorporate some reishi into your world as well. I think that what the pandemic highlighted for all of us is that we're stressed, we're overworked, everyone is experiencing a lot of burnout. And I think that just start there and then start to explore.
Okay. I'm like trying to remember if I have to look back I've been just taking lion's mane and turkey tail for the most part. Yeah. And like kind of almost every other mushroom has sort of fallen off to the wayside, but I kind of want to like restudy and start incorporating a little bit more into my daily sort of like supplement diet, especially the reishi. I feel like that's going to help with like the rest part of it quite a bit. Yeah, no, definitely. But turkey tail too is incredible. So it's like, they all are awesome. And that's why I love the blends, because I like to get all of them in my system. But, the immunity product that we're creating is going to have its two primary functional mushrooms be reishi and turkey tail. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay. And you said this is launching in 2 months?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
I can't wait.
I know, seriously. We've been seeing just an influx of more diverse voices in the mushroom space, like from the psychedelic to the functional. And so I feel like, at least from a personal standpoint, it's so awesome and inspiring to see like a women-led company like this kind of coming out. How does that affect your perspective and your approach to the mushroom space? And like, what are you seeing from like the inside?
Yeah, this is actually one of my favorite questions, because the reason why my mind changed about psychedelics, specifically, I was already kind of in the functional mushroom game at this time, but it's because I started to see voices that I would not expect to see talking about the space. And I think anytime you really have cultural change is when you see people that are stepping kind of like out of their tribe and talking about something different, and then pulling their respective audiences into a space. And why I think it's so important to have diverse voices coming out and speaking about not only functional mushrooms, but psychedelics, is because we need to normalize this in order to really make it mainstream. And you're seeing people now that are casually talking about psychedelics and their use of microdosing and really being proponents and outspoken and evangelists for the space, which is so beautiful, because historically that would not have been, even a few years ago, that would not have been okay with, they wouldn't have done it. And so now we're seeing the more acceptance around that, but it's also making it okay for other people to do it. And, there's a careful balance in how we have to like talk about psychedelics to preserve all the amazing work that's happening here. And you don't want, obviously we're, part of the reason why it got shut down in the 60s and 70s is because of kind of too quick mass adoption, and people got freaked out and scared and shut it down because it was being mass used for recreational use. But we're kind of past that point already with all the amazing research. Like, the space is not slowing down. And I think it's really important to have people speaking about it and normalizing it as much as possible, and also rebranding it, because why this space is unattractive to a lot of people is because of the way that it was branded, kind of like, you know, whatever you identify with, but granola, more hippie. And historically, a lot of the people leading this space, even though they're incredible leaders and I have so much respect for all of them, it was a lot of older white men.
I was just gonna say, yeah. Like, and if you don't connect with them, like, it took me a long time to get on board with starting to read their content, because I was like, okay, cool, I get what you're saying, but okay, I'm gonna set it over here.
Yeah, and they're amazing, and we need them too, right? But we also need women, and we need diverse people, and we need young people, and I think that that's happening, and I'm really excited about it. And you know, part of what we say all the time is we're trying to build our business in the spirit of the Mycellium network, and really embody that. The Mycelium, you know, they go and collaborate with diverse species that normally wouldn't have synergy if you're looking at other kingdoms. And so that's beautiful. So we want to mirror, you know, just to kind of bring it all full circle of even the beautiful meditation you took us through at the beginning. I wrote a piece on Medium a few months ago about if we were to actually incorporate the wisdom of mushrooms, that, you know, all the stuff that happens underground, above ground, we would have a more joyous and connected world for sure. And there's so much wisdom that we can learn from mushrooms. And I think that, you know, even what you're sharing about, you know, envisioning the mycelium coming up through us and then sharing that light with the world, I think that's the goal, is how can we mirror the wisdom and the intelligence of mushrooms as humans? Because there are so many life lessons that we can just look at from the way that they operate. And, you know, our goal is to kind of be a medium for the multiverse to share that knowledge with the world, both on the functional and psychedelic side.
I love that you brought up joy, because it's been so present in my mind, especially having the solstice just have been like on Sunday, and just all this like very joyful energy coming through. I think for myself, like the journey of psychedelics that I've taken, it started in the recreational and then got into more of the ceremonial and spiritual space. And through that, it was like very, very healing. But now I'm starting to come into a resurgence of, you know, call it recreational, but it's almost kind of like adopting the power of the psychedelic, the psilocybin, you know, or cannabis, whatever your psychedelic of choice is, in a way that helps you sort of like supports you in stepping back into your joy, which I feel like so many of us have like lost our way with, because we get so caught up in work, or we get so caught up in doing and, you know, like accomplishing things, that somehow the joy is like kind of secondary. And I think what I'm starting to realize in my own journey is that when you bring that joy up, and again, mushrooms are such a helpful, you know, like companion for that. When you bring that joy element in, you are so much, you can like, I don't know, you could present yourself in the world in such a deeper and more like heart expanded way, that all the things that you want to do, quote unquote, do, it just happens, you know what I mean? And it's that joyful element that I feel like is the catalyst for that, that if we can just sort of reorganize or reprioritize joy to be more important in our lives, like seeking joy, being in our pleasure, being in our rest, being, you know, in our joy, like the things that we want to do actually end up happening in a very, very magical sort of way.
I love that. And I think that one of the things that's been really present for me over the last specifically like 5 or 6 years is I've been in an interesting position based on like, you know, I've had a really weird background in life that has landed me to this point, like very strange and doesn't make a lot of sense at all, which is a story for another time. But through that path, I've worked in a lot of different industries, and I've been able to connect with a lot of people. This has a point, so I'm going to bring it full circle back to joy. But like, I've been able to chat with a lot of people that have made it in their career, whatever that means, like what the average person thinks of as made it, whether that's financially successful, you know, even from working in the fashion industry, some of the world's most beautiful people. And what was missing for a lot of people that made it is they just didn't enjoy the journey. And they, you know, if you know, the successful people on one hand, like maybe they didn't have anyone to invite on the yacht because they didn't prioritize community, and why community is such a big part of everything that we're doing. Like I love hosting. I love, that's a huge part of my passion. And it's kind of had a thread throughout everything that I've done in my life since I was, 16 years old, is I love bringing people together. And I think that people, if they just focus in their silo and then get to the end of their road, whatever that means, like it's the whole destination happiness mindset. It really doesn't exist. And the whole point is to enjoy the journey. Yeah. So I think that's such a missing piece, and why, mushrooms are so powerful. And what you said is so powerful is, psychedelic mushrooms specifically, they help people return to joy and awe and wonder about this world, and just get like a perspective shift on why we're all here. And just having that as kind of a reset is so important.
I loved everything you just said.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a perfect segue into like what the next question, which is like, what is the biggest life lesson you feel like you've taken away through your work with functional and psychedelic mushrooms?
It's a great question. I think I wrote this thing about, and there were 7 life lessons in there, but I almost don't want to pick one of those. Just from like what I've learned about how mushrooms operate. Maybe I will pick one of them. I think, can I pick 2?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, one would be create more than you consume. And I love that. I think that mushrooms are a beautiful example of that. They are like the ultimate example of creators. They also consume a lot. They can like reverse environmental toxins out of the air. They can, they're like the digestive system of the earth. So when things die, like mushrooms will literally go and eat that and return their nutrients to the earth, which is really, really awesome. But they also create so much. And I feel like a lesson for me is I feel like we're all constantly in consumption mode, but I want to leave the earth like creating more than I consume. And I think that's kind of the goal, like of how do you live your life, and what do you have to show for it? Whether that's like creating joy for other people, it can be creation. It doesn't have to be physical creation, even like energetic creation. So I think that's one of them. And then overall, like what mushrooms have taught me is, and I'm gonna go with like psychedelics for this one, because I've had a lot of really profound, just kind of internal realizations through my work with psychedelics. But I think you don't know anything about people till you see them go through difficult things. And I think that what psilocybin specifically has taught me is just to like really take a second, and when things get difficult, that's when you show your true colors. And so just really make sure that the way that you're responding when things show up, like is like the truest show of your integrity and all of those things. Like it does not matter how people behave when things are good and life's good, and you're at like when life is high, like it's how you show up when things aren't good for you or your people around you. And I've had a lot of just really like deep mental work around that area. So, those are the main ones. There's a lot, but this has been, such a fascinating exploration for me, because I really do, the more I learn about mushrooms, I'm like, damn, the more I want to be like them, the more humans should behave like them, the better.
I love that.
I know.
So
I couldn't agree more too. I mean, they're just what you just said about like the fact that they can decompose and yet also create. And there's this like beautiful, like, it's like they embrace the death and they embrace the rebirth and the life, and I feel like as humans, that's like one of the hardest things for us to do. So I love that concept of just looking to these, like, I think I read somewhere, I think it was actually like one of my teachers, that with all the different psychedelics, they all have different characteristics or personalities, right? And the mushrooms, the psilocybin mushrooms, are considered the little children. Cannabis is like the mother, right? Ayahuasca is like the grandmother, but mushrooms, psilocybin is like the little children. And it cracks me up when I hear that, because it's so true. They're like so mischievous, and they take you into like these wild spaces and show you crazy shit, but you always come back. It's like always about that childlike joy. that childlike wonder that you just said. It's like there's something so profound about connecting back with that I think is kind of the key to leading a life that feels not just purposeful, but meaningful, you know?
Yeah. And that's what they do. They return people to their childlike sense of joy and wonder. And if anyone has ever done mushrooms, you know, even in like more of a recreational setting, you totally understand what that does. You become fascinated, you become immersed in nature, you become, you know, more connected, but also just like really present. And that's, I feel like what most people are after is just a lifetime of being present. And if you look at the brain scan of someone who has psilocybin in their system, it is the exact same brain scan of someone who is like deep in transcendental meditation.
Yeah.
Connecting new neural pathways in your brain that have never been formed before. You're stepping out of your default mode network, which is, you know, the area that we're just a walking habit, and it allows us to take a step out of that and really, you know, wire new connections in our brain, but also form new habits, which is why it's so powerful. It's just a massive perspective.
Yeah, and there's this layer of like energetic magic that's always around us too, that like we're not connected to on a day-to-day level, that like psilocybin has this way of sort of just unlocking for us. Even if you don't do like a big brave dose, like you're gonna feel the effects of like, oh my God, that I can hear that bird so clearly, and the bird's like a mile away, and it's like we're so connected. You're like talking to the trees.
Thank you so much. This is like such a beautiful conversation. And I just want to end with like, where can people find Multiverse online, and give us all your handles, give us all your, you know, all the ways that we can connect with you.
Yeah, I know. I had so much fun chatting with you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. The easiest way to find us, so the Multiverse, you can find at yourmultiverse.com. We're on Instagram at multiverse.marketplace. My personal Instagram, please feel free to reach out to me. I love chatting with anyone who's interested in mushrooms, is Alli Schaper. And I'm sure you guys will link that up somewhere. But yeah, those are the main channels.
Awesome. Thank you, Alli.
And we're going to be on the lookout for your new product launch. Can't wait to try it.
Hell yes. Hell yes. Yeah, we'll definitely be posting about that. Music for Woo New is composed by Adam Miller.